We started our trip at Saipan International Airport. We went through Guam Airport and Narita International Airport and finally arrived at Newark Liberty International Airport. After landing, we went to the World Center Hotel, which we had booked near the airport. It was already 5 p.m. when we got into the hotel room, so we slept that day. The next day, we went to the Central Park for a morning walk. It is one of the biggest parks since it was founded in 1853. It had been becoming larger in 1859 and 1876. We walked for an hour around the park and I enjoyed it since I used to walk around the parks back in Korea and Saipan. Our next destination was the Statue of Liberty. It is the symbol of New York and it was presented by France to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the independence of the USA. We needed to take a ferry to go there, and before we got on the ferry, we took a picture with a person who was wearing a costume of the Statue of Liberty for customers. When we arrived, we could see an enormous statue standing in front of us holding a torch. We took a photo there and went up to the statue. I felt comfortable and excited when I looked down to New York at the top of the statue. Our last destination was Times Square. Times Square was one of the biggest attractions because it was full of enormous fancy billboards. I always wanted to go there after watching the movie Amazing Spider-Man 2 since it had a cool battle scene in the square. My family went there and were fascinated by the sight. However, we didn't stay there long since the lights from the billboards hurt my eyes. After breakfast, we went to the 911 Memorial and Museum. It was the place that remembers victims of the 911 attacks. The 911 attacks were the biggest attack in the history of the USA, which is caused by the terrorists hijacking 4 planes. I was interested in the 911 terror because I'd always heard of it since I had been living in Saipan. Therefore, it was a pretty interesting place to visit. After the museum, we went to Chinatown. Chinatown was the place that Chinese and other people from the nearby countries lived in other countries like America. It was famous because it had a lot of famous restaurants. Since it was lunchtime, we went to the Jinfeng restaurant, which is famous for its dim sum, a Chinese dumpling. There were shrimp, pork, and beef in the dumplings, and I enjoyed them very much since I liked all those 3 kinds of foods. Our last destination was Empire State Building. It was an enormous skyscraper that was built in 1931. It was one of the tallest buildings in the New York since the tallest building, the World Trade Center, had fallen due to the 911 attacks. It had 2 elevators, and the first elevator could only take us to the 80th floor, and there was a museum that showed the construction process of the building. After we went up 6 floors more, we arrived at the observatory. We examined all 4 directions and took a picture. We also saw the sunset in the sky, and it was the most beautiful sunset I'd ever seen. We wanted to go up to the 102nd floor with the second elevator, but we didn't since it was too late. At 10 a.m., we went to LaGuardia Airport, which took 24 minutes to go there. Our next destination for USA travel was Chicago, and after 2.5 hours of flight, we landed at the LaGuardia Airport in Chicago. We had lunch at the airport and we went to rent an SUV for our trip to Chicago. After we left the airport, we went to Millennium Park. It was a big park and it was famous for its numerous sculptures. Each sculpture had its distinctive appearance. We first saw a crown fountain, and it looked like a stone column, but it had a LED screen at the backside, which made it look like the person is spitting out water. Many people were playing in the fountain like a fountain in Han River Park. The next structure we saw was the Cloud Gate. It looked like a giant beam that was made up of iron, but there was no seam of it, so it looked like a curved mirror. We could see the sceneries of Chicago in different figures when we moved since its surface was not flat. Our last destination was Buckingham Fountain. It was built in 1927 for $750,000, which was donated to the city by Kate Buckingham in memory of her brother, Clarence Buckingham. When we looked for the review, it said that it was much more beautiful at night, so we decided to go there after Millennium Park. When we arrived, we understood why this is the most beautiful fountain in America. The harmony of the night view of Chicago and the glowing fountain was magnificent. We took a lot of photos and went to the Embassy Suites Chicago Lakefront Hotel. We woke up at 11 a.m. and went to the 360 Chicago. 360 Chicago was an observation deck on the 94th floor, and we could see the entire city and the coastline there. We entered the building after buying a ticket, which cost about $30 per person. All four directions were made up of glass, so we could see anywhere we wanted there. We saw Millennium Park and our hotel there. Since I like to be in the sky, it was an interesting place, but my sister thought it was boring. After that, we went to the Navy Pier. Navy Pier is a 3,300-foot long pier on the shoreline of Lake Michigan, located in the Stilwell neighborhood of the near North Side community area in Chicago. We went to the amusement park in it, and we rode merry-go-round and the Ferris wheel. Surprisingly, it was not just an ordinary wheel, but it stopped when there were no people who rode it. When we got on it, it slowly began to move. At the very top of it, we could see the whole park, and again, I enjoyed it. After the Navy Pier, we arrived at O'Hare International Airport. Since our next destination was Los Angeles, we needed to take 2 hours on the plane. We went on the plane and said goodbye to Chicago. After we arrived at the LAX airport, we rented a car and went to the Sheraton LAX Hotel, which is attached to the airport. At 10 a.m., we went to Disneyland. Disneyland was an amusement park full of Disney characters. It was the place my sister had been looking forward to because she had liked Disney characters since she was in the kindergarten. The first ride we rode was Radiator Springs Racers. It looked like a car from the movie Cars, and we rode this through the course. It was somewhat like a bumper car in other amusement parks, but it was enjoyable since I liked car-shaped rides. The next place was Guardians of Galaxy Mission Breakout. It had been a Hollywood tower, but it was remodeled after Disney took over the Marvel. It was a ride that I'd never heard about, but it was very fun. As soon as it started, it suddenly dropped from the beginning place and went up and down. It had a story of real Guardians of Galaxy characters, and I enjoyed the story since I liked Marvel movies. After the Guardians of the Galaxy, we went to Incredicoaster. It was a roller coaster based on the movie The Incredibles. As I didn't like to ride on a roller coaster ever since I rode T-Express in Everland in Korea, I wanted to sit and wait for my sister to ride it, but my sister dragged me to the station. I was scared before the train started, but I enjoyed it. It was less scarier than T-Express. We rode it 2 times in a row. We went to Paramount Picture Studio. It was a huge studio that had a guide service. We went there because my sister was department on film and video at Korean University. Therefore, she liked movies and studios, so that's the reason for this place. My parents and I booked an ordinary tour, but my sister booked a VIP tour. Everyone enjoyed it since it showed some of the actual sets of the movies and had a museum that presented pictures of the actual studios. After the tour, we went to Lake Hollywood Park. It was the place that was famous for its Hollywood sign of the mountain. As soon as we entered the park, we saw many people walking their dogs. It was a good experience for us since we could feel nature and the enormous Hollywood sign on the mountain. We took a photo of it, and my sister took a photo that seems that she had the sign in her hand. After Hollywood Park, we went to LAX to take a plane to ATL Airport. We needed to have 4 hours of flight. After the flight, we drove to the Westin Atlanta Airport Hotel. In the morning, we went to Atlanta Breakfast Club. Since it only took several minutes to go there, we went there. All of us ordered yogurt and fresh granola, which cost $7 each. Since I used to eat yogurt in the morning in Saipan, I enjoyed it, but my sister didn't since she liked something sweet instead of granola. After the breakfast, we went to Georgia Aquarium. It was the world's largest aquarium located in downtown Atlanta. Before we went in, we went to the parking lot of the Georgia Aquarium and ordered of Coca-Cola, since they shared it. We planned to go to both aquarium and World of Coke. We parked there. When we finally got into the aquarium, I was amazed at its scale. I've been to several other aquariums since I love sea animals, but I'd never seen such a big tank filled with water and animals live in there. There were 6 sections, and all sections had different shows. The most impressive show was the one with otters, since I'd rarely seen otters in the show in the aquarium. After the aquarium, we went to the World of Coca-Cola. It was the museum that showed us numerous informations about Coca-Cola. My sister, my father, and I liked Coca-Cola, so we planned to go there when we first made our travel plan. When we first entered the museum, employees greeted us and offered us a can of Coke for free. There were all kinds of Coke, and I chose special edition Coke with a green can. There was a theater that showed us a video of Coca-Cola in our daily life. Next, we had a photo time with the polar bear, which is the mascot of Coca-Cola. He danced, made gestures, and did other fan services for us. After that, we went to the special bank that had been storing the recipe of Coca-Cola for 130 years. Of course, we could not go and see the actual recipe, but there were some mysterious codes in there. In addition, we could see how Cokes were made or taste all kinds of Coke drinks in the world. It was the most memorable place that I visited in the USA. We went to ATL Airport to go back to Saipan. We went on the plane at 9 a.m. and arrived at Saipan International Airport at 8:11 a.m. It was a wonderful trip and I hope that I could go on another trip with my family.